I'm your host, Link the Boss.
And I'm your host, Blam the General.
Yeah, baby, what time is it?
It's time for 2 MCs in the Mic Podcast.
I said, what time is it?
It's time for 2 MCs in the Mic Podcast.
You the below, right? Underground where we are, right? If you keep it the buck and I keep it the buck, then we all gonna be alright. Cause we want the ball, right? The money, the bitches and all, right? The figures, the digits, the exquisite visits to all of the different shows, right?
I was still want more. Private jets to Caribbean shores. Girls in bikini, champagne grapes on my feed me. Smoking that lettuce for sure. Brr. Penthouse on the beach, champagne spilling hot tub where we reach.
You're in tune to the 2 MCs in the Mic Podcast with your host, Link the Boss, Blam the General.
Yeah, this used to be my route to school every day. I would leave the house probably about 7:45. My first class was at 8, but I went to a school that 5,000 students went to, and some students went to school from 7 to 11, some from 8 to 12, 9 to 1. It was never a time when the school was fully capacitated with all the students, so it was always a lot of in and out. A lot of people, a lot of students coming in every hour, a lot of students going out. And in that time is where I found the opportunity to skip class and just hang out on the wall. Hanging out on the wall, it was like a show. You know, everybody came to show off their clothes or just to see who was popping, who was hot, who was not. And this park right here used to come around here and, you know, we roll up their weed and smoke their weed and shoot dice and do whatever, you know, the shit we do when we skip school. You know, meet up with the young girls and see who house we was gonna take them over to crash them or whatnot. You know, you had your drinking parties. And like I say, me personally, I started selling weed, so I eventually stopped going to school. I was going to school for one purpose, and that was to sell my motherfucking weed. And in doing that, I thought I was being smart, was hiding the weed in different lockers. And one day they came in the classroom and called me out and went to 2 lockers and found damn near a quarter pound of weed in each locker. And before I knew it, I was in the precinct. My mother had to come get me from the precinct, and from that point, they had kicked me out of all Detroit public schools. So this right here is Osborne. Like I say, this is between 6 and 7 Mile on Hoover Road. And you had 2 gangs, 7 Mile down, and the guys were 6 Mile. And it was always a lot of drama going on right here because we were all forced to go to the same school. And this was the parking lot. It was nothing to see young guys 15 and 16 pulling up in this motherfucker in brand new Corvettes, brand new IROCs, Jeep Wranglers, and it was a show. This high school was just a motherfucking show. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have some great people that graduated from these schools and did some great positive things for themselves and the community. But then you had guys like me who had one goal. Education quickly went out the door, and the dope game came in. And I got kicked out of these schools, as I said, and I skipped 59 days of school, and I came home one day as if I had been to school, and my mother and father was sitting in the kitchen, and the truant officer was leaving the house rather. And as she was walking down the driveway, I was walking up. So I come in the house, and my parents was like, "How was school today?" And I'm like, it was all right. And my father quickly put an end to that shit and was like, "You ain't been to school in 59 motherfucking days. Where you been for the last 59 days?" And me, I had a reason or an excuse for every day. I told him the first day I went to the license branch. The second day I went to go fill out a job application at Burger King, and he quickly got upset with that bullshit and was like, "Meet me in the basement." And I knew what that meant. It was time to get an ass whooping, which I wasn't really tripping on the ass whooping because I knew I had deserved one. But he grabbed an extension cord, and at that point, I'm like, "You're not getting to whoop me with no extension cord." And him and my mother was a team, so she was like, "Well, look, dig this. You're not gonna stay here and tell us what we not gonna do." She said, "And you ain't got to run away. You could walk away." So at that point in time, I elected to walk away from home, which was the worst decision I had made. But once again, I don't have no regrets about my life because everything I've done, everything I've experienced is what made me the man that I am today. So when I left home, I naturally migrated back to the projects. My mother sat there and watched me, and my mother gave me 2 motherfucking lessons as I walked out her door. The first thing she told me was, "Don't take no wood nickels," meaning don't let no motherfucker run no game on you. Keep your eyes open and see what the fuck is going on around you at all times. And second, another valuable lesson I've always learned is don't depend on nobody. So with leaving my mother's house at 15, I knew 2 things: take no wood nickels and don't depend on nobody for anything. And that carried me all the way throughout my life. So from that point, like I say, I went back to the projects. By this time, crack had really started flourishing throughout the city. So it was really nothing for me to go from the transition of selling marijuana to selling crack. But I was doing it on a small scale because I didn't know the game. I didn't understand the game. All I knew was sell your dope, go back and get some more, and keep going. But I was accustomed to getting my weed for free. Like I say, my first girlfriend, her daddy had that shit in abundance, so I never had to worry about re-upping or spending money or doing the math and all that shit. It was just simply go fill my fucking shoebox back up with weed and be out. So now here I am in the projects, and I was at a basement party one night, and I'm standing there and I'm high. I had a few drinks, I smoked a few joints, and a fight broke out and a gunshot went off. The bullet lodged maybe 6 inches from my head. But when it hit the wall, I felt the concrete shatter on me. But for some reason, some odd reason, I never felt like I was in any danger. I always felt like I had a hedge of protection around me. I guess that comes from my mother raising me up in church in my early years. And I always felt like nothing could happen to me that I didn't forethink or foresee myself. So after that, after a period of time, I think I returned home, and my mother was trying to convince me to get back on the straight and narrow. And I was going with it for a minute until I got one of my girlfriends pregnant, and I had a child on the way, my first daughter. And when my mother found out about it, she told me, "You can quit that night school shit. You're going to get your ass a job. You got responsibilities and obligations now. You got a child on the way." So I ended up getting a job right down the street. I fabricated some documents, my age and things of that nature, and I found a good position. Back then, I think I was making maybe $10 an hour, but mind you, that was in '82, with the value of $1 was a lot greater than it is now. So I was working that job, and I had a family member, and I ain't gonna say no names, but I had a family member who was in the military, and he got kicked out of the service for selling heroin in Okinawa. So they shipped him back to California, and while he was locked up in California, he met people, and long story short, he came back to Detroit on his knuckles, I got him a job where I was at, and he quickly influenced me to let's get back in these motherfucking streets and let's get some real money. So from that time, I say maybe about 2 weeks later, we got our checks and we actually quit in the middle of the shift. We quit our job. It was a snowstorm going on that night. He called somebody that came and picked us up. We went and cashed our checks. We went over on Van Dyke and we went to a nickel house. We went and bought maybe $400 worth of nickel rocks. And the motherfuckers was the size of my fingernail. And we would go maybe 10 blocks over, sell them for 20s. So this was my first real experience with hustling crack. In a weekend, I had turned $200 into damn near $2,000. And from that point, it was no looking back for me, because I could see obtaining everything I really wanted in life, as far as material shit. So I would come back to this school and I would recruit all the cats I sold weed to, all the guys who wanted to roll. Back at that time, we called it rolling. If you wanted to roll out with me. And within 3 months, I think we may have established over 10 to 12 crack houses from Jefferson all the way up to Van Dyke and 6 Mile. And my only job was to ensure that the bag was put up at the right location and pick the money up. At the same time, I was still at my mother's house and she didn't really know. She thought I was still going to work, but I kept a rental car parked around the corner. I kept all my clothes in the garage because she still felt like she was supplying me with, my necessities. And like I said, I would go out, change clothes, get in my rental car, and I would go to the Burger King over on Van Dyke and Lynch Road every morning, about 7:30 in the morning, and I would go in the bathroom and I would put a $10,000 to $20,000 sack of cocaine in the ceiling, and my workers would go pick it up, distribute it to the houses. Then I would come back later that evening, maybe 2 or 3 times a day before the Burger King closed, and pick the money up out the ceiling. And we had 2 or 3 locations like that. Everything took off, and I got so lost in the game because I didn't know what to expect next. It was just like a dream, It was just like I was caught up in some shit I had no understanding. Like I think Pac said it best: deep in the game with the rules missing. So maybe 5 to 6 months later, we done stacked over $100,000. I don't know the value of money. Like I said, I didn't have no real responsibilities. I had a child on the way, and I was doing all I was supposed to do as far as keeping her mother supplied with cash. So we ended up getting into some violence and caught a murder case. They raided the house we were staying at. By this time, I had moved out of my mother's house because they had found out what was going on. My sister knew what was up. So at that point, I moved out, and I moved all the way downtown on Jefferson. And we were supplying houses around there. And like I said, we had got involved in a homicide. And when they came to investigate it, I thought it was just a normal raid. I was around the corner from the house at one of my little chick's house. I'm sitting on the couch, we kicking it, eating some Coney Islands, and the big folk came through and they flashed the light on the house. And they flashed the light on the rental car I was driving. She went to the window and was like, "The motherfucking people's out there. They looking for you." So I jumped up, ran out the back door. I had the burner on me. The burner I had on me was the one that was tied to the homicide. So I run around the corner, run through the little gangway we had, and when I come around the side of the house, I'm feeling for my keys to get in the house. As soon as I got on the porch, I'm oblivious to all the undercover police cars that's parked up and down the street. But when I get in the house, when I get on the porch, they opened the door with their heaters drawn and told me, "Come the fuck on in." Came in, they laid me down. I'm thinking it's a drug raid at the time. So at that time, I'm still tough. I'm tough ass real at that time, fuck it. I got money to make bonds, so it ain't no problem. But when I got down there, it was a different story. It was a no bond. and it was a homicide case. And that really woke me the fuck up, because we weren't talking about no probation or no year or two in no county jail or no prison. We was talking about 20 years or better. So by the grace of God, I was arraigned. I think I really paid attention to them when they said you had a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So logic was, don't say nothing, because anything I say gonna be used against me. Fortunately, like I say, by the blessings of God, I was able to get out that situation. I was arraigned. When I got arraigned on that case, I called my mother and told her I was free, this, that, and the other. I'm on my way home. And my mother said, no, you're not. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your ass down to the Greyhound bus station. It'll be some money waiting there for you at Western Union and a bus ticket paid for you. Get on the bus, go to Indiana. So I was going back to where I originally was born, where I was born. So when I get back to Indiana, a little small town in Indiana, they was just now getting familiar with crack. They wasn't selling crack rocks. They was just selling powder, and you had to cook your own shit up. So me knowing what I know, I quickly introduced the crack cocaine game to them in Indiana.
It's that boss life, that boss life. It's that boss life, that boss life. We live that boss life. Yeah. My enemies looking, we gon' make it. They don't give it, we gon' take it. We stacking this money, no time to fake it. We working so hard to be the greatest. It's that boss life, that boss life. It's that boss life, that boss life. We live that boss life. Yeah. I'm always at my best when I'm under pressure. Take advantage of investments, money molester. It can easily get tragic, too drastic to measure.
4, 5, 6 months later, I can't recall exactly how long the court dates was extended, but I'm in Indiana now. So every few days, I'm in different rental cars on the Greyhound coming back to Detroit, grabbing more work, grabbing more workers, going back to Indiana, laying spots down, putting spots down, getting more workers, stacking more money. And eventually I was like, you know, fuck going back to court, this, that, and the other. My cousin actually went to trial on the case. He beat the case at trial because they had no evidence and no solid evidence. They couldn't really pin it on nobody. I think they was just looking for somebody to, like they do in all situations, somebody to open their mouth and say some things that incriminate themselves. But like I say, they tell you out the gate, for all you young guys out there that may be viewing this, you had a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And if you just take heed to that, a lot of times, man, guys could walk away from all kind of shit. And I ain't trying to encourage no, you know, doing wrong and how to get out of it and all that. But that's just something that any guy in the streets may need and want to know. So years later, I've been on the run. I've been on the run for years now. And I came back to Detroit, and life was pretty good at that time. So I go get my baby's mother and my first child, and we go way out on Telegraph. And it's like, mind you, this is like in 87, 88. We ride way out to Telegraph, go to one of the better restaurants. We sit down to eat, and I was just so happy to have my baby daughter in my arms. I didn't have her in the car seat. We get pulled over. In the process of getting pulled over, they run my name. When they run my name, they come back, we sitting there. They told us to sit tight for a minute. Next thing I know, it's a helicopter flying above the car. The helicopter land. They take me out the car, put handcuffs on me, put me in the helicopter. They fly me down to Beaubien Street, 1300 Beaubien. the 9th floor, which was the murder unit or the homicide unit. So I'm sitting there, and by this time, my mother done got the news. She's upset. Everybody's, like, damn. Go back into court 2 days later. It was a black judge, a black woman judge. And she looked at me and she read the charges again. And she gave me a $100,000 bond. And for some reason, she said, I'm gonna give you an OR. So she gave me an OR bond and I was free again. So at that time, I kind of felt like, God was on my side, the game was in my favor, because no matter what I was doing, no matter what trouble I was getting into, it seemed like I always had a pass. So I get out of that situation. I come home, 2-3 days later, I'm back on the Greyhound with some more work, with some more guys, taking them to Indiana, getting more money. And eventually, I get caught up in a homicide in Indiana. And I caught a murder case in Indiana. And when I caught that case, I just knew it was over with. So I went on a world tour, on a national tour, if you may. I was like, fuck it, I'm going out all the way, kamikaze style. So I had 2-3 workers with me. We went all the way down to Alabama, opening up spots. We went to Kentucky. We was just on the move. We was just putting down spots, moving a sack. Whenever I felt like it was getting hot, we got the fuck up out of there and went somewhere else. And all of it came to a halt. I came back to Detroit. And when I came back to Detroit, I was coming back to cop some work. And I was at my mother's house. And the phone rung. I answered the phone. And they said, hey, this is Detroit Edison. We're doing a survey. Is so-and-so there? They called my name out. And I said, no, he's not here. And as soon as I hung the phone up, they came through the windows, the doors, and they arrested me. They brought up all the charges I was facing here in Indiana. I mean, here in Detroit. And once again, I knew I was facing 100 and some years in Indiana, if not a life sentence. I knew I was facing time here in Detroit. But I was real optimistic that I wasn't gonna get an abundance of time. I may do a few years because I just had that feeling.
That boss life, that boss life, it's that boss life, that boss life, we live that boss life. My enemies working, we gon' make it. They don't give it, we gon' take it. We stacking this money, no time to fake it. We working so hard to be the greatest. It's that boss life, that boss life. It's that boss life, that boss life. We live that boss life. I'm always at my best when I'm under pressure. Take advantage of investments, money molester. They can easily get tragic, too drastic to measure. So ask me if I let you have